Welcome in as we count them down on Warchant.com. Yep, top 40. We enter into the top 10 now as we see it for the upcoming season. Excited about it. We'll start at number 10. Let's get straight to it. Khalan Laborn comes in. Aswan had him at number 4. Cory, you had him the lowest at number 23. We've seen worse disparities here, so we all knew that this is we all knew that Khalan Laborn is a special player and has an opportunity to have a big year. Let's talk you first, Cory.
Well, yeah, I mean, I probably should have ranked him a little higher, but I go into this thinking he's going to be the backup. He's going to be the second string running back. But at the same time, I think he's a guy that could get 10 to 12 to 15 carries a game, depending on how he takes to this system and how if he got the explosion back, which I assume he has. It's been you saw a few glimpses last year, but he just didn't get a ton of carries last year. And he's still kind of what we remember him for is the spring game from, I don't know, 30 months ago.
When he saw that hole and hit that.
Yeah, when he hit it. So, but he showed the talent there, the jump cut, the hole, the explosiveness. I mean, there's a lot there to really, really like. And I think he is going to be a big contributor for this team. I do. I think maybe the fact that Cam Akers isn't in front of him now and he knows he's going to get carries and he has a chance to start, maybe he turns into the 5-star guy that he was when he came here.
But don't we think with Norvell, this is really I don't know if there's a true starter backup. I mean, doesn't he traditionally go committee at running back? We're going to talk about Corbin here in a minute, but I mean, it really, to me, looks like those are going to be kind of the two guys, maybe in mixed grain in there, some other players too. But I love both of these guys, and I think this is a nice mix of these two guys are going to be both major contributors. You kind of got Khalan's going to be the home run hitter, and Corbin may be kind of the rough between the tackles guy. So I think they complement each other well.
One thing I would say about Khalan, and I've been skeptical of Khalan when we've talked throughout the offseason, because I just feel like if you've been on a campus for 3 or 4 years and it hasn't happened, I know there's been injuries and different reasons, but usually you run out of time. It just doesn't happen. But talking to some people around the program, I mean, people are still high on him. They say he's very diligent. It's never for a lack of determination. Like, that kid wants it, and he studies film and he studies the playbook and he wants to be good. And with his athletic ability, maybe it all comes together. I mean, I at least like hearing that, because he was a guy that early in his career, some people wondered if he would even stay for 4 years at Florida State or look to leave. And, it sounds like his attitude's in the right place. And if he's healthy, he could be a difference maker.
And God forbid we give him a modicum of improvement up front on the offensive line. Okay, so DJ Matthews, everybody knows DJ Matthews. A lot of you at home watching this are going, DJ Matthews is still here? Good Lord, it's been forever. The thing I'll say about that, though, is he looked bought in what we saw briefly there in spring. And that's kind of important, because ability's never been in question when it comes to DJ Matthews. It's just a matter of whether or not he cared and he was focused. If he cares and he is focused, he could be a very, very good player. I don't want to spend a lot of time on him. He's a top 10 guy. We know he's talented. He's part of a group that's talented. I just think that, the main thing to point out here is that he was out there practicing with a broken thumb or whatever it was in spring, and he was efforting on every single play, and I have never seen that from him. That's a positive sign. Cory Durden on the defensive line, we know, obviously, very steady, solid player who you can depend on. I don't know if you guys want to add anything there, because I think coming up next is where it gets very interesting. Darius Washington at number 7. Gene, you go first.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if this is all just hoping he's going to be that good.
Yeah.
Because what would that mean for the team? I mean, we got a really small sample size as a true freshman. I want to say it's pretty good, but I went back and looked at the grades. His PFF grade was 45.4.
Hey, that's right in.
He started 3 games last year, and we put him at number 7. I'm not disagreeing that he should be that high. But
again, we're not ranking the best players. We're ranking the most important.
But here's the thing: there's zero depth at offensive tackle, so he's going to start. He's going to start. We know how important the position is. We're all hoping and praying that somehow he can be at least decent and doesn't get hurt. But that's it. I mean, that's it right there. But we know he's got talent. He showed, even though his grade was really bad, you're like, wow, this guy's, again, he was judged against Abdul Bello and Jawan Williams last year. But based on that, we were like, wow, look at this freshman. He can play.
Let me shine some rays of hope onto this situation.
Please do.
2 things I would say about Darius Washington. One is, when I did that Keyshawn Helton feature and I spent some time with him, and talked to his family. Keyshawn and Darius grew up together. And Darius, talking to his dad, talking to Keyshawn's dad, he would kind of coach both of them coming up in different sports. He said, like in high school, Darius would do drills with the receivers and DBs. Like he said, he's got the best arm you've ever seen out of an offensive lineman. Like he could play quarterback if he was 100 pounds lighter. He said he's got an unbelievable arm. He would do footwork drills with the DBs and the receivers. I think he's got a lot of potential. Now, I don't know if he's going to be great, but there's a lot more to like there. I think what we saw and gave us reason to be excited in those brief glimpses, I think we should trust our eyes. I think there is real potential there.
Well, and also he might not be able to block a defensive lineman, but afterwards he can say, "Hey, do you want to have a throwing contest?"
I got you.
Yeah.
He's got him.
And let's run the 40. I got this too.
He's got hand talent.
To Ira's point, he does look athletic. It's not just a big mass of someone of goo. He can move, and he seems pretty light on his feet, so there is some potential there to maybe become something.
It's like you went from trying to figure out he's not like Abdul Bello. Like,
yeah. I think his ceiling is higher than that.
Sean Corbin is a kid that we all got excited about. I know he was in the green jersey during practices that we were at, but you want to talk about a guy that looks the part?
Yeah.
Man, it was obvious to every one of us the first two times we saw him. First time we saw him, oh, that's going to be your starter right there. That's your guy.
Big. Man, he is big. He is put together. And he was talking about how maybe he'd be the inside tackles guy and Laborn would be the home run hitter. But remember, this guy returned kicks at Texas A&M. So he's got some top-end speed because Jimbo doesn't put slappies back there that run 4.9s to return kicks. We did have McFadden back there returning punts for a while, but either way.
Oh, he can screw up the punt returner with the best of them. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Nobody screws that up like Jimbo. Yeah.
But that to me is the most encouraging thing about Corbin. He only played the 2 or 3 games that he played as a starter, but he had a long kick return for a touchdown. I don't care that he had a kick return for a touchdown as much as that he's fast enough that Jimbo would put him in that role. To me, he must be a pretty dynamic guy.
Isn't it the one thing about him why I had him ranked above Khalan? Because he's proven himself. I mean, he's been in the SEC at a high level. I think he's had over 1,000 all-purpose yards in that one season in 2 games that he played. So he's proven himself at the highest level already. And like you said, he passes the looks test, assuming he's 100% healthy, and it looks like he will be. It's hard to imagine him not being a stud this season, frankly, a big-time running back for Florida State.
What's funny?
Go ahead, Ira.
I was just going to say, when he was coming out of high school, he was one of the guys. He was of the guys that they lost. Remember that recruiting class when Jimbo was mailing it in, and they had all those kids committed, and then they all bailed, and then he ended up going with Texas A&M. He was like the one guy that they lost in that whole period where I was like, man, that's a huge loss. And then he goes and goes and plays at Texas A&M is a true freshman, looks really good. And the other thing I love about him is the way he parted ways with Texas A&M. The fact that he got Jimbo Fisher to not only be okay with him leaving, but like supported his effort to transfer, not because he didn't want him, but because he appreciated, like, he just loves him as a kid. I mean, again, and we talked to him in the spring. I mean, he's really an impressive young man. I think he's going to be a huge. I put him above Laborn because of some of those factors. I think he's a complete back.
Yeah, he was definitely in everybody's top 10 on this list, so we all seem to feel in a similar manner. All right, now we get into the top 5, and Dontae Lucas was in everybody's top 10. We're really getting down to guys where there's not a lot of controversy, as you could imagine. When you start talking about top 5 players, these are guys typically universally agreed upon. Dontae Lucas, though, is a guy on the offensive line, and he, in many ways, gets elevated because most of the offensive linemen have been straight up bad. And when he played, he wasn't bad. He was good. He was pretty good. And I think that elevates his status even more. How healthy, how strong is Dontae Lucas? We feel good about the upcoming season with him. He comes in at number 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And we don't, we'll have to see. He was out all spring. Still had his foot in a boot. And from what I understand, all the guys, everybody that has been out or rehabbing for the summer all did really well. Even the guys that went home. I didn't speak to anybody specifically about him, but I was told even the guys who did go home that came back, the rehab really went great, and they feel very good about it. So I think he's going to be good. And the thing with him is maturity. I mean, I think that's the biggest. There's no doubt physically he can do it. He's got to stay focused and engaged and not do any of the nonsense like before the Wake Forest game and some of the other things we saw to him. And I think Alex Atkins is going to help him a lot in that regard.
Isn't he like, if you just look at talent, I mean, isn't he, is there any question he's the most talented offensive lineman on the team? And if you talk about a guy that might be able to play in the NFL, is there anyone else on the offensive line, maybe we don't know some of the freshmen, that looks like he can play in the NFL? It's Lucas. And that's why, because it's a position that's massively been underachieved. It's been bad. And you go, well, this is a guy that actually has legitimate big time talent. So, I mean, him being able to go in now, a little bit more experience, a little more maturity, going in as a full-time starter, yeah, he should be a big contributor for FSU.
We come in at number 4, Thompson National Dean. Top 4 by Cory, Gene, Ira, Aslan, and Jeff. That'd be me. We had him at 13. I think he's a very good player. Tackling machine, that's for sure. Do we want to expound on that? I think this is kind of self-explanatory.
No, I mean, he led them in tackles, and I think he was second the year before. That's a good way to put it. He's a tackling machine. Unlike maybe some of the other guys on that defense the last couple of years, he seems to relish contact and like putting people on the ground. That seems to be something he enjoys, which is good. And I think what's odd about him is he might be the best athlete on the team. When you talk to players about him, I mean, he can jump out to the clouds. He's a fast runner. He's lanky but physical and strong. And I think he's going to be an NFL player. And I don't know exactly what role he'll play this season. I assume he's just going to be a safety. But I think they're also going to have at least some packages where he's close to the line of scrimmage, right? Don't you foresee that?
Yeah, and I would think that would be smart.
Yeah, and there's the athletic ability's off the charts. I mean, he was getting Division I basketball offers before he even got Division I football offers. And he's, at his size and athleticism, he is a tackling machine. I went back and watched some when I did a story on him. I watched some of the turnovers because he had a few forced fumbles last year. They weren't flukes. Like to Cory's point about his physicality, when he goes to hit somebody, he explodes into them, which a lot of times when you think of lanky, long safeties, you don't necessarily see that. But that's one more thing he brings to it. And I think he's another guy. I think all these defensive guys are going to be better than they were in the past based on better coaching and a better scheme. And
he's a guy, you talk a little bit now, you're hearing more and more NFL buzz about him, that he's a guy that the NFL is kind of relishing right now. Again, because of that body type and how he plays. And just to throw out the grades we're looking at right now, as you can see, he ranked number 2 on the team, according to PFF in grades, at over 80%, it's really impressive for a player in the secondary.
Look at those. He dominated Alabama State.
Look at those tackling grades though for a safety in the second half of the season. I mean, for a safety, ridiculous. Those are good numbers.
Top 3, here we go. Asante Samuel. Everybody had him in the top 6. It's pretty obvious the talent is immense. We think he's an elite player. Not much more to say than that. And then we kind of get into the top 2, which I guess drum roll. You knew, given that we haven't brought their names up, who was going to be in the top 2, but Tamorrion Terry ends up at number 2. I know that Aslan had him at number 1. Did you guys, any of you, consider him as the most important player coming in here? Did you put him anywhere? Well, obviously you didn't, but did any of you think of him possibly as the number 1 player?
I considered it.
I didn't.
You didn't at all?
And Cory's the truth there on.
And I love, and I'm his.
You love him in an unhealthy way, yeah.
I'm his agent, but no, I still thought Marvin was the most important. But again, Terry, what he does, him coming back, that I don't know, man, that surprised me about as much as Marvin coming back. I just thought they were both gone. And what Terry will do for this offense, not just the numbers he's going to put up, which, I mean, I think he's like second in the country the last 2 years and in average yards per touchdown catch. I mean, he's just a home run machine. He averages about 50 yards on his touchdown catches or close to it. And he had the 90-yarder in the Sun Bowl. But what he's going to do for the other guys, because I just think with a healthy Keyshawn Helton or a DJ Matthews, or if Warren Thompson turns into something on the other side outside, man, they're going to get so much one-on-one coverage. And they should be able to exploit the bejesus out of that. And then if they do well, and you're going to cover Terry with one corner on one side of the field, well, that's an automatic. We're going deep, and you probably can't cover him. Cory, he's such a difference maker.
Cory, you didn't, and I'm not going to ask you to divulge the name, but you talked to somebody on the offensive staff who is on the staff now that maybe wasn't in the past about how Tamorrion was used and how he maybe could be used, and how you use a dominant player like that.
Well,
is there anything you can share about that?
Yeah, you move them around. Last year, if we saw, the last 2 years, Tamorrion Terry was going to go wide to the right, and he's just going to basically run. I mean, he might run a stop, he might run a post, but he's going to line up in one position. That's not going to be the case this year. They're going to move him around as much as possible to try to get one-on-one matchups, whether it's putting him in motion, whether it's starting him in the backfield and then putting him in motion. They're going to do everything they can to get the best player on the field the ball in his hands as much as possible, because it's not like he did make some plays after the catch too. Like, it's not just running straight and catching bombs. His touchdown against Boise was a 2-yard pass. He's got some running ability after the catch, and they're going to do everything they can because they know that's the dude. They're going to do everything they can to make sure that guy catches 5 or 6 balls a game at least.
Now, he does have to learn everything though. That's the other part of it. To be able to play 3 or 4 different positions, you got to be able to learn how to play 3 or 4 different positions, and that's going to be key.
Well, isn't that probably maybe one of the reasons why he came back was because that route tree, he was so limited in what he did last. It's got a big guy, it's got speed, but he's only running 2 routes all the time. So, I think that's part of it too, where he wouldn't have been a first round. I don't know where he would have gone. He probably wouldn't have been a first round pick this last year, but he goes out, like you said, he moves around. You see some diversity in him able to run different routes and line up in different positions. In the NFL is like, well, now he's a first round pick. So I think for that, if they're able to do that and get the most out of him and make him more versatile in that position, man, he could really elevate himself in the eyes of the league.
Yeah, in many ways, it was smart that he came back because that was as deep a receiver draft as we've seen in a long, long, long time, and he was not going to go in the first round. His talent is there. There were some inconsistencies with him, and also the coaching staff didn't do him any favors. He gets a chance now to really showcase his skills in a unique way, and he'll enter into an offseason where there are not nearly as many people going at that position as high as they were projected to this previous draft. Marvin Wilson comes in at number 1. It's not a surprise. Marvin, I think a lot of people are rightfully rooting for Marvin Wilson and rooting for this team to have a great season, partly because of guys like Marvin Wilson, who committed to Florida State out of Houston, 5-star guy, and he has been through an awful lot with 2 different coaching staffs, and really, he could have never imagined. He could have gone anywhere, and he chose Florida State, and this is what we've been. And there have been a lot of guys that fall under that umbrella, but he's an elite player who gives it his all on every single play. He's now a vocal leader. He's been a really leader since he got here. I think Marvin Wilson is the kind of guy that everybody should root for and are rooting for, because we thought when he came here he was going to see so much more success, and it just hasn't happened.
Yeah, and I think the one thing, some people may look at the numbers and they go that the defensive stats, and that's not really a way usually to judge a defensive tackle. But I would say that we're looking at the numbers now. I want to point out what's ridiculous. So you got to look at other factors, and this is where things like Pro Football Focus that does the grades, I think, tells a lot more about this. He graded last year at over 90%. Over 90% for defensive player. Now, to put that in perspective, there were 3 defensive tackles in FBS that graded in his range at 90% or higher. The other 2 guys are in the NFL right now. So he's the leading in terms of PFF grade for tackles. He's the number 1 returning in 2020. But that just tells you what an elite player he is. Not only the leadership, coming back, everything everything else that goes on with him. He is that. There's no doubt he's the heart and soul of this team right now.
He was the number 1 player in last year's top 40, and Tamorrion Terry was our number 2 player in last year's top. I think it's got to be the first time we've ever had 2 guys, number 1 and 2, repeat back to back.
Yeah, and I think we're all 4 of us were surprised that they are back, but they are. And not only are they the 2 best players on the team, they're 2 of the best players in the country. And I think Asante Samuel, you could throw in there as probably being one of the best corners in the country. And when we look at this overall team, like Ira said, it used to get pretty hard around 12 or 14. Like, okay, I guess he's 13. You look at this now. You got guys like Laborn in that are maybe down further. I had him ranked 20th. DJ Matthews I had ranked a little lower than other people, but Warren Thompson is in the. Warren Thompson could have a breakout season. There's so much to me when you look at this team and the Amari Gaynors of the world and the Kandos and the J-Robs. There's a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of proven commodities. And I just think when you look at the list as a whole, you're like, man. Okay, there is a chance. Now, next year is going to be different because you're losing the top 4 guys on that list are gone, probably, unless Asante Samuel comes back. So you're losing it. But for this year and this season, man, you've got a roster that's loaded with not loaded, but has quite a bit of NFL talent, in my opinion.
I was definitely going to interject. Let's go easy on the loaded. It's not loaded, but there is talent. There are segment groups on this team that if they play up to their ability and they're coached well for the first time since they've been here, it can be exciting. And so I'm just happy, guys, that we're able to talk this list through, go through top 40 and talk about a season like it's going to happen. Like we're pretty sure that we're moving forward here and the season's going to take place and we'll get to see all these guys play and whether or not we're right or wrong in the rankings and all of that. But there was a time a few weeks ago where I'm not so sure we felt that way. So that's exciting. And I know it's always a pleasure to be with you guys. And so I guess on that note, I'll say thanks for having me back for this and keep doing the great work on warchant.com. And to all of you out there who watch these videos, we appreciate it. Take care, be safe, and we'll talk to you the next time that we get together for a video, which should be any day now, right, fellas? We'll get together again here real soon. Take care, everybody.